We're here today to share our curiosity around care.
Care is so often bound to notions of healthcare. Perhaps we can reconsider care.
I'm a filmmaker, a designer, a strategist, and a university professor at Parsons School of Design in New York City. And my work of the last 30 years has involved ethnography, media, and creative intervention for positive change.
I'm a service design strategist and design educator. My work revolves around how even the smallest gestures at a system scale can wildly transform the human experience. Over the years, I've investigated this systems-oriented approach to design in contexts of economics, education, and most recently, healthcare. As the creative lead of the Design Innovation Group at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, I lead a team that uses the lens of design to better understand, communicate, and shape the experience and delivery of cancer care by envisioning environments, services, tools, and artifacts that pose the key question, what if cancer care was truly human-centered?
My recent work, the End of Life Project, is the product of 4 years spent with 5 individuals at various stages in the process of dying. Along with my collaborator, Pavel Wojtasek, I documented hundreds of hours of being present at the end of life. This fieldwork resulted in an art installation, a feature-length film, and ongoing development of tools for design research and education. In preparation for this project, we were trained as end-of-life doulas. Along the way, many people asked me, why have you evolved into this work? What made you choose this? And indeed, there were many reasons, and it was only a few years into it that I was reminded that in 1985, I was a 21-year-old gay man living in New York City. And that was a very particular time and space, and my relationship in time and space to my own mortality was indeed profoundly impacted by that. Our film work employs an immersive, participatory approach to time and space. The result of the work is an invitation for viewers to explore their body, their senses, their ability to be present in all ways in relation to many things, but including their own mortality. Western culture often conflates issues of privacy with the marginalization of the dying. We create many forms of distance in our resistance to face our mortality. And during our fieldwork, we became increasingly interested in visceral responses to mortality, and these responses were our own. We became intrigued with the space between us, the filmmakers, and the dying person, and this space is time. We were able to be with these people for what they were able to say or not say, what they were able to do or not do.
In her book, No Place for Dying, Hospitals and the Ideology of Rescue, Helen Stanton Chappell states, a distance and often tension exists between safe places that support a dying situation, such as hospice and palliative care, and the wider social invisibility and dismissal that adheres to these places. Our contemporary attitudes most often characterize this seclusion as privacy. However, this position raises serious questions. How does this line drawing between public and private, between rescuable and dying occur? And how does the culture of the United States both benefit from and reinforce such removal of the dying experience? And how might the answers to these questions help illuminate the marginalization of the dying?
We tend not to handle the ends of things very well. Endings are hard. The end of a novel, the end of a season. How might we consider a time that is the end of treatment or the end phase of life?
How do we mark and honor the end of a moment? And how long are these moments? Minutes, days, months, years? When it's time to reach an end, how might we mark the transition?
Might the moments at the end of life be better facilitated if we found ways to honor and navigate the other transitions in our lives? The end of our work lives?
The end of childbearing years?
The end of a relationship?
The end of what had been a good time?
How do we care, and what might we learn from endings?
Together, John and I lead a graduate studio course called Design for Living and Dying at Parsons to explore how design might shape our systems of care. We explore the visceral experiences of serious illness that most of us will encounter from one point of view or another, embrace the fact that all of us will eventually die, and address how these trajectories will most likely take form around scenarios unplanned and beyond typical preparedness. We take design into these contexts as they are among the few that are truly universal.
A particular emphasis of our studio is placed on considerations of how we might actively consider expanded notions of care. And to paraphrase Anne-Marie Mall from her wonderful book, Logics of Care, these considerations are not a matter of making well-argued individual choices, but are rather something that grows out of collaborative and continuing attempts to attune knowledge and technologies to our bodies, our senses, our fully human selves, and to consider the complexity of our lives. More and more options can create the illusion of freedom, while this is not always what genuine care might entail.
Our work at Parsons explores human relationships within systems and services, carefully considering the experiences of all people around these expanded notions of care. Through interactive workshops, utilizing both inventive tools for insight generation and media for creative explorations, students engage a variety of diverse stakeholders in a co-design process. All the people in the ecosystem, patients, hospice caregivers, nurse practitioners, palliative doctors, behavioral psychologists, family and friend advocates, oncologists, and non-clinical care providers come together to hear and see various perspectives within the complex systems of caregiving and to greater understand competing priorities and points of view in order to discover and design change.
Care is how we show up to be with one another from a place of our humanity first, rather than from a place of our roles, titles, or expertise.
When are the gestures that define care throughout our lives learned?
When does our capacity to care begin?
How do we build our capacity to protect and be protected?
To nourish, to be nourished.
To advocate and to be advocated for.
To teach, to learn.
To be trusted and to trust.
To listen and be listened to and heard.
To assist, to be assisted.
To hold, and to be held.
I wish to be cared for and maintain my dignity, my agency, my whole self.
I wish to be cared for and continue to be a vital participant in the world.
Do we have the capacity to see the opportunities to care?
For who people really are.
For what they uniquely need.
For what their goals are in the moment and for the future.
For the values that provide their lens on the world.
For the person and not the patient.
It is our job to care, and beyond our jobs to care.
Who will you be in a moment of deep need?
When we push dying to the fringes, might we be losing the opportunity to experience and perhaps to learn the slowness that allows wisdom to flow freely?
Creating this kept me from insanity in the nursing home. Believe me, it isn't nursing, and it's not home. So that's why we're trying to think, do we want to spend our last years of life in California or New York or Massachusetts? You should think about it before it overtakes you and suddenly you have to go into a place that you haven't examined. And it can be like a prison in terms of slapping you and things like that, and completely ignoring your wishes. It's terrifying. But the boys were stuck with us suddenly. They did the best they could. So act before it's suddenly there you are, you're 75, and you have no place to go, sort of. If you look ahead, you can avoid that. For rich people, it's no problem. But for your type, it will be quite a difficulty finding. You have to go in the morning at breakfast time to stay the day and see what they do, whether they actually do encourage creative activities or that's just catalog talk, you know. Being in the middle of it, I can't tell you strongly enough that you and your pets and your children have to be welcome there. Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.